Cadillac is one of the oldest car companies in the world, dating back to 1902. Well, let's fast forward to the last decade, where they've really concentrated on reviving the brand with fresh new designs to appeal to a younger set of professionals. With cars like this, the CTS. It's interesting to watch the changes taking place in the luxury space. The German car makers producing larger, softer riding cars with less edge than in the past. Cadillac, on the other hand, is pushing towards a more spirited drive with control, driving dynamics, and power as the top selling features. A major focus at General Motors has been on mass reduction, basically going on a diet. This CTS is one of the lightest cars in its class, roughly 35 kilograms lighter than the previous model. However, we should point out it's just a tad smaller, but this achievement shouldn't be overlooked. The front of this CTS could be confused with the smaller ATS. They both share the vertical front marker LED lights that look fantastic, especially at night. This, along with the chunky front spoiler, deep-set headlights, and prominent Cadillac emblem, all look first-rate. It's the back of the car that loses some of the edginess, going more for a sculpted, flowing approach. Now, if you haven't sat in a modern Cadillac, I encourage you to do it, because what we have here is hand-cut and sewn leather throughout the entire interior, soft-touch materials everywhere. And that's a juxtaposition against what is kind of a stark-looking center cluster that has swipe controls instead of conventional buttons and dials. The driver changes settings like heat and volume by touching or sliding fingers along the surface. The large screen uses the Cadillac Q system, or Cadillac User Experience. The graphics are some of the richest in the business, and the system is easy to use after a while, but at first it can seem confusing. The CTS comes with a 4G LTE connection, OnStar, along with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Can I tell you again how much I love all the leather in here? The seats are very comfortable in the front, but in the back, if you take kids around on a regular basis, you might want to check the space in the back seat. It's a little bit smaller than some other vehicles. Now, it wasn't that long ago if you bought a mid-sized luxury car like this. It started with a V6, but the trend in the market is to go to turbo 4 cylinders as the entry engine, and that's the case with this CTS. Comes with a 2-liter direct injection turbocharged engine, 268 horsepower, and 295 pound-feet of torque. The car I have today is the 3.6-liter V6 with 335 horsepower, but less torque than the 4-cylinder with 285 pound-feet. What's interesting is Cadillac sells the CTS as a rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive on almost every trim, something almost unheard of in the luxury sedan market. I would suspect that almost all of the cars purchased in Canada are all-wheel drive. All come with an 8-speed automatic. Cadillac adds some nice touches like an available magnetic ride control and standard Brembo front brakes. Now, I mentioned at the beginning there's a trend towards softer cars from the German automakers, but this Cadillac is more about driving dynamics and feel back to the driver. Now, granted, this particular model has the magnetic ride control. Now, I would order my CTS with this feature. There's a button here that changes from touring to sport. Magnetic ride control is a highly sophisticated suspension system. It monitors the road up to 1,000 times per second and changes the ride. Now, I also mentioned weight management, and you certainly notice that with this car when you get it into the corners. It feels quite dynamic. A couple of cool things. There's a mirror here in the center. When you flick the switch, it goes from being a regular mirror to a monitor. Gives you a much wider field of view across the back. It's nice to have that there in certain situations. Now, this CTS is getting a little bit on in its lifespan, so there could be an update coming soon, but even with that, this car holds up against much of the competition. Now, this CTS offers some value as well. If you compare it to other premium import brands of this size, it's good value. Starts at just under $50,000 for the 2-liter rear-wheel drive. If you want the 3.6 all-wheel drive, like this one, it starts at roughly $10,000 more.